Welcome back to Statement Piece. This week, we are going to do a quick 2020 year in review.
Yes. Yes. Happy New Year, everyone. First, let's start with some current events.
Yes, first of all, this week, a model accused Alexander Wang of groping him, setting off a wave of accusation shared on Instagram. And 3 days ago, which was around January 1st and New Year's Eve, Alexander Wang issued a statement denying the charges, saying, "I intend to get to the bottom of this and hold accountable whoever is responsible for originating these claims and viciously spreading them online."
Yes. And in France, more than 2,500 people took part in an illegal rave in northern France despite the country's curfew to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. The event started on New Year's Eve and was shortly shut down by police after arrests and clashes, which resulted in at least 3 injured officers.
Ulta and Sephora are currently trying to make their way into the big box retail market, according to a publication within the business of fashion. In November, Ulta announced a partnership with Target, and it plans to open up small pop-ups in 100 Target stores this year. And on December 1st, Sephora said that it was going to do the same with Kohl's and have 850 shop-in-shops by 2023, with 200 opening by fall 2021.
It's interesting because Sephora used to have something like that with JCPenney. Like they would have a Sephora inside of JCPenney.
Yeah, it references that in this Business of Fashion article. It says a similar partnership with JCPenney will wind down. Probably
Interesting.
because nobody shops at JCPenney anymore.
Yeah,
Like
that
I
is
feel like I
true.
don't even know what they're doing. Additionally, in late December, Hilaria Baldwin was accused of a decade-long grift where she impersonates a Spanish person. And she responded with a statement in the New York Times saying, "I'm living my life." She is not a Spaniard, but an American who was born and raised in Boston and who was known until 2009 as Hillary.
Oh,
She said, "There is not something I'm doing wrong, and I think there's a difference between hiding and creating a boundary." For days, the internet news and media have been sharing evidence of Miss Baldwin speaking in a Spanish accent in a video and making this is so stupid, making gazpacho and asking Telemundo's Evie Cisco what the English word for cucumbers is. And and oh my gosh. And in a biography posted on the website of the Creative Artists Agency, she said she was born in Mallorca, Spain. She speaks English with varying degrees of a Spanish accent, depending on how happy or upset she is feeling, she said. Oh my gosh. She's so crazy.
right. Well, that's all for current events. Let's go into our reflections on 2020. So I found this article that was published by Coveteur by Camille Freestone named Reflections on 2020, an unprecedented year in fashion and where we go from here. And it's interesting because they bring up some studies and data that some other platforms have found. And so, one of the biggest trends of 2020, which I don't think would be surprising to anyone, is comfort reimagined. So, in the shopping platform List, their year in fashion report, apparently in April, searches for sweatpants jumped 104% month to month, while joggers grew 123%. Similarly, at Moda Operandi, which is a high end fashion shopping platform, shoppers were also looking for basics, which the article talks about may not be actually basic, but their top performing lifestyle categories were knitwear, outerwear, and off duty boots. Catherine, have you prescribed to this trend?
For sure. I think joggers are something that I really got into this year, and also kind of baggier pants. Like because I've also been into different types of textiles like patchwork and corduroy, but even for corduroy stuff, I'll get looser pants so that they're like a jogger style. Like I recently got these. And they're like joggers, but made of like fake corduroy. And I think also it has something to do with the fact that baggier clothing in general is trending. Like, I think people, even if they're going to dress up and wear jeans, they'll get baggy jeans or wear baggy graphic tees. Like I feel like the classic look is a baggy Astroworld tee and really baggy long jeans, and then Air Force Ones or Converse.
Another thing that this article brought up was the integration of fashion and politics. And I think this is something we've definitely brought up in the podcast, in that we have seen fashion and just how we consume as a way to vote with our dollar. And we've seen a shift basically throughout the year towards supporting Black owned businesses and also more conscious brands in the sense of sustainability. Um, in addition, it's interesting because the article brings up how politicians served as de facto fashion influencers and have actually swayed purchasing habits. So, in 24 hours after Kamala Harris's acceptance speech, searches for white pantsuits spiked by 129%, while pussy bow blouses increased 95%, according to a list. In addition, the vice president elect's footwear of choice, which is Converse, saw a 160% spike in searches. Also, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez enjoyed her influence as well, as her Instagram shout out to Telfar led to a 163% increase in searches that week, which I think is really interesting, and that we can't deny the fact that fashion and politics, which I think people may have thought weren't interconnected, are definitely linked today.
Are there any politicians that you look to as style icons?
The Queen. But she's not really a politician.
Queen. Yeah, I think for me it's Meghan Markle. Like my mom always says, you shouldn't post this if you don't think Meghan Markle would. Hey, what do you find that the Queen has worn that you've adopted?
Nothing.
Why do you see her as a fashion icon?
I just think she's like classic, the Queen, you know? Like there's no one else who dresses like her, really. And the article talks about how we also let TV guide our fashion choices. For example, there's this Netflix effect, and that was seen after the release of Tiger King, where leopard and animal print searches spiked 66% after the show was released.
I feel like that makes sense because usually I think people tend to get trends from things like red carpet events or stuff like that. But I think because we weren't having as many of those events where celebrities could stunt and have an opportunity to trend set, a lot of trends were coming from TV and social media.
Yes. So, shall we talk about some fashion trends currently?
Yeah, get into it.
Okay, one that I've definitely seen a resurgence of is the puffer jacket. It is not new, it's not a new trend by any means, but I think North Face has taken it to another level. Now you'll see the upcoming Gucci and North Face collaboration.
I know the brown North Face especially. What's with the North Face? I feel like people used to not like North Face.
I don't think people didn't used to like it, but now I think it's more so seen as a fashion item, whereas before it was seen more as an item out of utility. And you see that with a lot of brands, like Stone Island, for example, which is the brand that recently got bought up by Moncler. They were a hiking brand, and it was also a hype beast brand. So I think North Face just became one of those where it kind of transitioned from utility to a trend item in the fashion world, which is really interesting. Yes, like you said, Catherine, the brown one is sold out everywhere.
Yeah, I'm looking at this Refinery 29 article, the North Face jacket that we can't seem to quit. And it was written in early December 2020. But it talks about how it's interesting that people continue to get the North Face. And they were saying 3 months before the unofficial first day of North Face season, the San Francisco based outdoors brand made headlines when it announced a collaborative collection with Gucci on TikTok. And then a month later, Hailey Bieber and Bella Hadid were wearing it. And there was a long awaited collab between MM6, Maison Margiela, and North Face. And so they are hypothesizing that North Face's hype is coming from its collaborations, including MM6's signature circle shapes.
Mm. That's interesting. I know. I feel like once you have people like the Jenners, the Hadids, and Hailey Bieber, who I think
Yeah.
definitely this year cornered their have claimed their space in the influencer world, in that kind of like celebrity fashion influencer world. It then feeds downstream and you see it on TikTok and on Pinterest.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember when Isaac was on as a guest and he was saying if you get a celebrity to wear a piece of your merch or anything like that, it doesn't really have the same effect in terms of people copying that influencer style unless it's a Jenner or Hadid or the male equivalents of Phi Cadra, Lucas Spot, Travis Scott, ASAP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
In this Refinery 29 article, it says in November, search for North Face's puffer jackets was up 150% month over month, and demand for the Nuptse puffer grew 71%, making the jacket one of the most viewed products from the brand on the site. What is the Nuptse puffer?
I believe it. It's like the
1990.
one that you've definitely seen it.
Oh, yeah. 1996 retro.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I know.
Oh my gosh, it's $230.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I feel like it kind of borders the line between luxury and affordable because obviously it is an outerwear jacket. It's made for use. So I think people will see it kind of goes back to when we were talking about our or goes back to our outerwear episode where people are going to pay a little bit more if it's good quality and it's actually you're going to be able to make use of it, which I feel like a North Face jacket would make sense to do so since that is an outdoors wear brand.
Right.
But it's not so expensive that it's out of the realm of affordability for I feel like middle class people.
All right, next trend.
So the next trend that I've definitely seen are cutout sweaters and also shrugs. I'm actually wearing one right now. Or I guess you could call it a bolero. And I feel like this was kind of seen on the runway like a year ago, but now it's finally kind of trickling down. The next trend, white wellies. White boots in general, I think definitely had its moment. I don't think they have to be rubber boots per se. The first time I saw this as a trend were there are these Chloe platform sort of or platform square toed white boots, which had a moment. They're completely sold out. And then there were these Zara leather flat leather boots.
The first time that I saw it was in the form of white combat boots.
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone wearing them. So, what do you think about that?
I feel like white combat boots were in 2019 summer. Because that's when I prescribed to that trend. I actually had white Doc Martens, which I'm trying to sell on my Poshmark if anyone's interested. Mostly because I only wear them twice, but I definitely think this is a great way to add some color or just stray away from the all black winter outfits. I've definitely seen this on people in New York because I think white boots are definitely very useful here in order to keep warm from the snow and whatnot. Okay, next trend, logo tights. I think this is definitely a trend that will reoccur every single winter because last winter it was like the Gucci tights that I think kind of took its circuit on the influencer circle, and then now it's the Chanel tights. I just think it's here to stay. It makes sense that it's been a trend, it always will be a trend. I feel like it's a subtle way to add some spark into regular tights.
Yeah, I agree. I also think these Marine Serre moonprint leggings and just in general, their moonprint stuff is going to be everlasting for at least another year.
Really? I think it's already on its way out.
I feel like I've been seeing it a
Yeah,
lot.
that's when you know. It's like
Okay, next trend is cutout sweaters.
yes.
I actually do really like cutout sweaters. I wish I had one.
Yeah, I think cutout sweaters and then also just the sweater sleeves. I'm thinking specifically of the one from Simonette Miller, and the sleeves in sense of like a bolero. I think Kendall Jenner has been seen wearing a couple of those. I'm wearing one now. My friend Ellen got one recently, but I think it's a great way to kind of add some pizzazz to just wearing a sweater or wearing knitwear in general.
Okay, next is the furry bag. I personally would never get this because I feel like if it gets wet at all, I'll be so grossed out and never want to use it again.
Oh my God. It's interesting because I definitely saw this on Pinterest a lot. I think of like the furry leopard bag, also very popular on Depop. So it's interesting because I think that also translated into high fashion. You wouldn't just see a furry coat, but also furry handbags. Great for winter. That's all I really have to say about it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously, because I'm on TikTok, I have a lot of exposure to a lot of really young creators, since that's the crux of the creator field on TikTok. And so I've come across Esther Dobrik's profile, who's David Dobrik's little sister. And she has kind of become somewhat of a thrifting, vintage, Depop influencer type. Like she makes a lot of her own clothes and gets a lot of things on Depop. And so I was looking through her Depop and her Instagram and just different things that she's made. And I think the younger you are, the more inclined you are to be kind of in tune as an early adopter of trends. And she has a lot of items that are similar to furry bags. And she also has a very like schoolgirl kawaii look. Like she has a lot of small clouds that she put up around her ceiling and like Hello Kitty stuff and little sweaters. It's very Y2K, but uwu. And I think
Yeah,
that's
I
what
feel
these
like,
furry bags are.
yeah, like that's definitely what's trendy on Pinterest. Like the
But I feel
Pinterest
like
girl.
if it's trendy on Pinterest, then it's already mainstream.
Yeah, but this whole like Y2, like exactly what you're describing, like that's its own subtype. All right, next trend, checks. Now, I think this trend has not only infiltrated fashion, but also interior design. I've been seeing
Mm.
it everywhere. I think you see checkered rugs, checkered beddings, a lot of checkered decor and houseware in the sense of plates and mugs and stuff, but also clothing. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I went to Melrose Fairfax Flea Market last week, and the only item I wanted to get a baggy jacket, and the only item that I bought was this racer car jacket because of the checkers on it. I think it was just like what I was inherently attracted to because I've been seeing it in different places.
Yes.
Where do you think it came from?
It's very like 70s.
Mm,
Like I don't think it's new because I also think of in the interior design realm, thrifting and kind of vintage shopping has also had a resurgence as platforms such as Depop and things of that sort have become more popular. And a lot of things had checks on them. So I think it's almost mimicking those trends. So in a report released by Vestiaire Collective, which is a resale site, and the Boston Consulting Group, they found that the share of secondhand clothing in people's closets is predicted to grow from 21% in 2020 to 27% in 2023. And also, 70% of respondents in 2020 stated they feel more compelled to buy secondhand goods in an effort to be more sustainable.
mm. Yeah, I saw
Which,
Shane. Oh yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I saw Shay Mitchell posted her 2020 resolutions and things she wanted to do more. And one of them was to support more small businesses and be more sustainable, which I think is a
Yeah,
common
definitely.
trend.
I know. I think I even look back on my purchasing habits. I think other than mostly jewelry. I remember when we were first talking about what people were buying during the pandemic, we talked about more so investment pieces such as skincare and self care products, but then also things that have more lasting power, such as jewelry. Any clothing that I actually bought for the most part was all on a resale site. Even if it was new, I think buying something on a resale site basically is taking it out of or is still contributing to the ecosystem rather than adding to it. So definitely check out sites like Vestiaire Collective, Depop, and Poshmark. You can find things that will also not only be cheaper, but brand new, and you don't have to contribute to more items being produced. And another thing that this article talks about is how purchasing habits may have been changed for good. And according to Moda Operandi, they looked at the sale for items that would be considered future heirlooms, and the purchasing for future heirlooms has increased by far this year in comparison to last year, which I think is really interesting and also reflects how we were thinking at the beginning of the pandemic, where we're looking at things that are going to have a longer lifestyle or a longer wear time, or have the potential for resale or the potential to be passed down to a family member or whatever it may be.
Well, I think one thing that was interesting that relates to Future by I sent it to you earlier.
Okay, sorry. Quick comment about TikTok trends videos.
Wait, yeah.
So, me and my sister, when we were together for the holidays, were going through her For You page, and there were a lot of these trend prediction TikToks.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people need to consider the fact that these trend prediction TikToks are including photos of companies and pictures of people who are already wearing the items. So they've already been trends. Like this is nothing that is, I don't know. I don't think any of it's new, really.
It wasn't really mainstream to me, although I have seen it before.
Really? I feel like once you hit like the influencers, I think it's like pretty mainstream.
So for the listeners, this TikTok that I found was by @breadwitch, and she predicted Charlotte York headbands, which they show a picture of Emma Chamberlain wearing. So you were right about that. La Menso style rings, which Sydney Carlson wears in one of the pictures, 1930s silhouettes, and big colorful knits. And then Victorian nightgowns.
But I think Victorian nightgowns are so old. Like when slip dresses first came out, it was that sort of thing. I think 1930 silhouettes are also pretty old. If you look at like Paco Rabanne and most recent season, I think like you see those silhouettes and dresses. I guess like looking at new trends, but I don't think these are new trends. I don't know.
So then what are your 2021 trend predictions?
Good cue. I think one thing that I would be interested to see are leather vests. I think that would be really interesting. I think the sweater sleeves, boleros are still going to be there to stay. I think tracksuits and all of that sort of thing will still be there to stay. Leather kind of had a resurgence. Like there were those pair of Aritzia faux leather pants that were really popular on TikTok this year. I think
the brown ones.
Yeah, there's like a brown and a black pair. I think those will probably still be there. I'm trying to think of other trends. I think cutout clothing, I think will like come back. It had its moment, but what are your trend predictions?
I feel like I'm not as good at predicting trends, but I think the things that I thought were interesting from the articles that we've read and things that you've said is definitely a lot more brown. Like Sita was mentioning to me a few weeks ago that brown is kind of a mixture of all of the other colors put together, and it's sort of a symbol of unity amongst Gen Z, sort of like the new millennial pink. And also, I think it's a good androgynous color. And as fashion especially becomes baggier for women, then I think fashion will in general become more androgynous. And you can already see it in the way that influencers dress. Like I would say Billie Eilish is seen as a pillar in the fashion community, and she has really androgynous style. And even like Bella Hadid and Kendall, sometimes they dress androgynously.
You're right. Gender fluidity is going to be something that I think we will see in the future. Like there were some collections with Tom Brown, and then you saw the cover of Harry on Vogue. So not only in women's wear, but menswear as well, which I think will be really interesting to see who will push the boundaries and where that will go, because it's still something that's not really as tapped into. I think one thing that we've also seen in 2020 is people not being afraid to adopt different styles. Like if you think back to our fashion archetype video, there's so many different styles, and I think each when we were doing our research, each archetype have found their own community to share that style and share that lifestyle. So I think we'll definitely see more of that this upcoming year.
Yeah. Oh, and another trend prediction I have is that I think Converse will really come back into the mainstream and replace Jordans.
I hope not, but that's my own opinion.
Because I've been seeing it a lot on young people, and I think they started first.
Catherine's excited to wear her Converse.
I know. Well, I don't even own Jordan, so I think it's to my benefit. Like I still have my Converse from when they were popular like 4 years ago. And then I wore them up until 2 years ago, and then I got shamed, but now I wear them again.
And she still gets shamed.
But I feel more inclined to stand my ground because I see a lot of influencers wearing it.
I think that's another thing we've kind of seen in 2020 is, I don't want to say the death of influencer culture, but definitely less so. I think some of the mainstream influencers who we used to see, such as Danielle Bernstein, Ami Song, Megan Mercer-Leahy, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but people like that, I don't see as fashion pioneers nowadays, but more so as a pipeline for fashion houses to advertise whatever new item they want to.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Sorry.
Oh yeah, because also I think now followers are looking for sincerity from the people that they follow. Because especially with things like cancel culture, you just have to be so sincere or else people are going to divest from your platform. And also I've seen a lot of things like, for instance, there was this Q&A video that Dixie D'Amelio did, and then Noah, her boyfriend, was like, why don't you post with us more? Are you embarrassed to post about us? And then she said, no, if it's unless it's a paid opportunity, I barely post. And she's been getting a lot of flack for that because people are like, why don't you care about creating organic content for us? Like, we invest in you, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. It's also kind of interesting because it's like, then unfollow her if you care so much.
Yeah. But I think companies know that, right? Nowadays, you barely see advertisements and print ads. I think influencers or niche influencers are the way for companies to push their products out.
Right.
And we're definitely going to see more so of that. I'm interested to see if that will ever die out. But in the direction that everything's going, I don't think so, because I think even more niche influencers have more of a voice now because they have a more loyal following. As we look forward to the new year, do you have any goals, Catherine?
Yes, I do. I think to be able to become more interactive with our listeners, because I feel like there's not a lot of feedback that we get. I mean, maybe because the people that listen are just our friends and family and they just like to hear us speak, but I think it would be cool if we could get some listeners that we don't know and get their feedback.
Yes, start some discourse.
Yeah. So can someone DM us if you're listening to this and tell us on which platform you'd prefer discourse? Like we can make a Facebook group or start being more interactive on our Twitter.
Yes. I think a goal for myself and for this podcast is to be more experimental with my style in a somewhat sustainable way. I think I would like to thrift a little more. When my sister visited, we went thrifting a little bit, and it was such a cool experience. It's very time consuming, but when you find gems, it's like the best feeling. And I can't wait to try out new trends and new styles and be able to share it on this platform as well as our YouTube and TikTok.
I would say mine is the same as well because I never really thrift shop I never really thrifted before this year, and I didn't really support a lot of small businesses either, because I think I didn't really consciously think about what I was consuming, and I just always chose Amazon because it was the fastest. But more recently, I've been trying to thrift and support small businesses, and I think I always shied away from it because I thought that they were going to have much slower shipping times and be very expensive or more expensive than the things that I could find on Amazon. But when I went to the Melrose Fairfax flea market, and also, well, yeah, when I went to the Melrose Fairfax flea market, they had a lot of small businesses and thrifted items that you could get, and they were all around $20 or $30, which is basically the same price point as Amazon stuff anyway.
Yeah. And I guess you have a face to the production as well, or a face to the company.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're meeting someone in person.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I know, I'm excited for flea markets here to open up again. Unfortunately, they're all closed in New York, but that was one of my goals when I first moved here, because I wanted to find some interior design pieces, or I just love finding a unique piece that no one else is going to be able to find elsewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know. Our other goal is to maybe launch another project off of this podcast. And I can't wait to see what this year has in store for us.
Yes, definitely. So let us know what you think we would best be able to curate for others. Maybe a bit of vocal fry coaching. For everyone listening on our YouTube video, someone commented, have more vocal fry, please, which I think was an at me because I don't think Sita has vocal fry. But I don't really mind. I think it's a Valley Girl thing. That's why I have vocal fry.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's just part of your origination story.
It makes women sound. Wait, I was texting my friend Katie about it because she has had nodes in the past. And so she has done vocal coaching as a result to help her own vocal cords heal. But she was saying your vocal cords are being stressed in order to have vocal fry. And also, it generally is affiliated with making people sound less smart because you drag out your words and drop the tone of your voice at the end of sentences and phrases. And so people, like she said, she tends to be self-conscious about it, especially in an interview space, because it makes women sound less authoritative since it's affiliated with being so like, just bimbo-esque, I guess.
Well, I think those are all of our trend reflections and predictions. I'm interested to see which ones we'll be right about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yes.